Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a really fundamental question, something right out of Class 10 biology. What does it actually mean for something to be alive? It sounds simple, right? But the answer, well, it goes a whole lot deeper than you might think. Let's get into it. On the surface, it seems super easy to tell what's alive and what isn't. A rabbit, a tree, they're alive. A rock, a car, they're not. But what's the actual rule we're using to make that call? For most of us, it really just comes down to one simple observation. So most of the time, we just trust what we see, right? If we see a dog running around or a cow chewing some grass, we just know instinctively that they're alive. We see movement, and our brain immediately connects that movement with life. It's kind of our default, everyday definition. But hang on a second, what about when you're asleep? There's no obvious movement, but you're definitely still alive. And what about plants? We all agree they're living things, but their movement, their growth, is way too slow for us to actually see it happening. Suddenly, that simple rule doesn't seem to hold up so well, does it? And this is where science gives us a much clearer picture. It turns out, just using visible movement as the only sign of life, well, it's just not enough. To really get it, we have to look beyond what our eyes can see and start thinking about all the invisible movements happening on a much, much smaller scale. While we see things like running and growing on the outside, the real work of staying alive is happening deep on the inside. All living things are these incredibly organized structures, and without this constant, invisible molecular repair crew working nonstop, those structures would just fall apart because of the environment. Okay, so this brings us to the real heart of the matter. If life depends on this constant, behind-the-scenes maintenance, what exactly are these jobs that every single living thing, from the tiniest bacterium to the biggest blue whale, has to do just to keep going? Scientists call these essential jobs life processes, and you can really think of a living thing like a super complex machine that needs constant upkeep to keep from breaking down. These processes, they are that upkeep. And here's the really mind-blowing part. These vital functions are always on, 24/7. It doesn't matter if you're running a marathon or just sleeping on the couch. The maintenance job of life never, ever stops. So what are these big jobs? Well, we can boil them down into 4 core processes. First up is nutrition, which is just how we get food for energy. Then there's respiration, that's breaking down the food to actually release the energy. After that, we need transportation to move all those good things around the body. And finally, excretion, which is, getting rid of the waste. Okay, let's start with the absolute first step, getting energy. Without a source of fuel, none of the other stuff can happen, right? This whole process is what we call nutrition. When it comes to getting food, life on Earth basically split into 2 main teams. On one side, you've got the autotrophs, which literally means self-feeders. Think plants. They make their own food. And on the other team, you have the heterotrophs, or other feeders. That's us. We have to eat other things to get our energy. So while we're out there looking for a snack, autotrophs are literally making their own food from scratch. This amazing ability is pretty much the foundation of every food chain on the planet. So for the rest of this explainer, we're going to focus on their incredible food-making process. And what is this incredible process? Of course, we're talking about photosynthesis. You can totally think of it as nature's ultimate recipe, cooking with the most powerful ingredient there is, sunlight. The whole recipe can basically be summed up in this one chemical equation. A plant takes in some simple ingredients, carbon dioxide from the air, water from the ground, and then, using the energy from sunlight, it cooks them up into glucose. That's a type of sugar. It's food. And the byproduct? Oh, just the oxygen that all of us need to breathe. Now, this whole thing doesn't just happen in one big flash. It's actually a super neat 3-step process. First, the plant's green stuff, chlorophyll, soaks up the energy from sunlight. Second, that light energy gets turned into chemical energy. And third, that chemical energy is used to turn carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, the plant's food. So where is this magical kitchen? Well, if you could zoom way, way down into a plant's leaf, inside its cells, you'd find these tiny green structures. These are the chloroplasts, and this is where all the photosynthesis action takes place. Okay, that makes sense. A plant gets water from its roots, sunlight hits its leaves, but wait a minute. how does it get that carbon dioxide out of the air and into those tiny kitchens inside the leaf?
The secret is these tiny little pores all over the leaf's surface called stomata. Think of them like tiny adjustable mouths. Each one is surrounded by what are called guard cells, and they can open and close the pore. This is literally how the plant breathes in the carbon dioxide it needs from the atmosphere.
So, let's put it all together real quick. Photosynthesis, it's how plants make their own food. What does it need? Carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. Where does it happen? Inside those little green chloroplasts. And how do the ingredients get in? Through those tiny pores we just talked about, the stomata. And this brings us right back to where we started. A huge, world-changing process like photosynthesis is really just a bunch of tiny, invisible movements of molecules. This constant, non-stop, purposeful movement, that's the maintenance. That's life. So we've seen how plants do their thing. But what about you? What about us? I mean, right now, as you're sitting here listening to this, what are the invisible life processes firing away inside your body to keep you going? How are you getting energy? Moving materials around and getting rid of waste? We're definitely going to dive into those other processes in future explainers. So if you don't want to miss out, make sure you subscribe to the A1 Institute YouTube channel. And hey, for all you students getting ready for Class 10, if you're looking for admission, notes, or some expert guidance, just contact A1 Institute. All the info you need, including the phone number, is right down in the description. Thanks so much for watching.